Welcome to Toffee Tuesday, the Blue Room show, where me, Dave, and Rodger pick through the weekend's action and any other talking points we picked up along the way. If you're watching on YouTube, please do give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave us a comment. If you're listening on the pods, please give us a star rating. 5-star rating would be lovely, and leave a comment if that's available to you as well. Lads, let's get straight into it. Another great away win for the Toffees. We've had a few since Moyes turned up. For me, the thing that stands out here, and it's been a feature of Everton since Moyes came back, I'm not thinking we're out of games in the last few minutes. So at 0-0, where you might switch off and think, the game's done, or if we're 1-0 down, we've got this knack of coming back and scoring late goals. Dave, I'll come to you first. That's always been a feature of Moyes' teams for me.
It has. It did become a bit of a reputation we had in his first spell. That it's something. I remember a lot of people used to say, pundits and whatnot, there's always something that happens late at Goodison. And if you think about the Rooney year, where I think you think of the one of Villa, you think of the Southampton one. Me and Rodger have spoken quite briefly on a few different shows this season. It does get that feeling when Moyes is there. Obviously, you look at the derby this season. I think one of the talents that he's got is getting something out of players until the last kick of the game. I mean, it's very, very cliche to say so, but he wants everything from them for the full 90. If you're not like that, then you don't play. And he's done that when you've got good players where you're frustrated that he hasn't started a player that you particularly like, and it's because I would guess the reason why wasn't that they gave everything they needed to the final whistle. I know it's not by coincidence that you go and do what we did at Forest, particularly when we're quite a counter-attacking unit now, which I'm quite comfortable with. I know, it's evolved in a way from what Dyche was in terms of we don't need enough of the ball. We'll try and not concede and hopefully go and score. With Moyes, it seems to be something that is manufactured, something that he puts together himself, something that he wants his players to do, is that when they do win the ball, when possession is quite low, which ironically, we had 58% possession against Forest, which I found astonishing, particularly that we're third in the Premier League. They destroyed Manchester United. They've been fantastic at the sitting ground. And to go there and play them a lot at their own game as well. Yeah, and we were much better than them. It's got me to thinking again, the record he's had so far since he came back. I'm thinking, do you know what? I wish this was 20 games earlier in the season. You might have a chance at looking at a European qualification and things like that. But it's Everton are good to watch when we're away from home. And it used to be, I mean, it was an issue for many managers for many years, even Moyes at the time. Winning away from home is difficult. Right now, I think if you're lucky enough to be an away going fan, then it's you're getting what you pay for. Really, I think you go and watching good performances from Everton, and I think when you've got what's coming up there, going to Chelsea and all that sort of thing, you're relishing that rather than going there thinking, "What am I playing at?" Taking like a 20-hour day to go and see Everton get home.
Yeah, definitely. It's a marked change, isn't it, Rodger? Just want to pick up on something there. The fact that we've beaten third place Nottingham Forest. Now, in seasons gone by, that would have been maybe Arsenal, might have been Chelsea, could have been Man United, could have been Liverpool even. Do you think there's just not that mental block there with third place Nottingham Forest because it's Nottingham Forest and we've got a pretty good away record down there? I think we've won 4 and drawn 1 of the last 5. I'll check that. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's the record. Do you think it's as simple as there's just not that mental block there?
I think the two teams are in very different places, and I think we were able to play with freedom. There was nothing on it. All the pressure was on Forest there. All the pressure, and nothing is riding on our games, and therefore you can play with freedom. Now, sometimes players get inspired by the jeopardy. We'll see what happens with Villa tonight against Paris Saint-Germain. Will they freeze or will they go for it? And will that pressure inspire them? Forest had just lost the previous match, hadn't they? You'd have thought, looking at the league table, this was a nice chance to get 3 points and kind of secure third place. And I think the pressure worked in our favour. And I think the idea that, did we go and think we're playing third place Nottingham Forest or we're just playing Nottingham Forest? You know, I think when we go to Chelsea, or even if we were to still go to Old Trafford, we'd go, shit, we're at Old Trafford, not 15th place Man United, because we have this mental block with these big clubs historically, don't we? Or the big Premier League clubs in the case of Chelsea and, you know, Spurs, for example, where we've got an appalling record, Arsenal and others. So I think we were able to play with freedom. And I think he set the team up reasonably well. We're not used to having 58% possession. That must be the most we've had in a match all season. And the winner's a thing of beauty, isn't it? Very, very well deserved. A great foot in from McNeil. Nice to see him back. You know, that ball is through the eye of a needle because he kind of puts it through the defender's legs almost accidentally or deliberately. And Doucouré manages to even fool himself, because I'm sure he's aiming for the other corner and puts it at the near post. I'm certain of that. But
that doesn't do him a disservice at all, Rodger. You know, I thought the exact same thing when I saw it. I thought that looks like a fantastic finish, but he's definitely going for that other corner. It's a natural way to shoot, isn't it? Maybe Beto would do it the way that he did on purpose because he mishit it.
Yeah. I think so. And it's only really when you see it from behind that you realise, it has gone in the near post. That's brilliant. But I think it was an accident. Hey, we'll take it all day long. Brilliant 3 points. And that's the only time, you know, if it wasn't for the derby, you know, I said a number of weeks ago we wouldn't lose another game all season. And I still stand by that. If it wasn't for those ridiculous refereeing decisions against Liverpool, I think we'd still be sat here on the unbeaten run. And you know, we've scored in every away game under Moyes other than the derby, and that's unlucky not to on that occasion. So yeah, I think he's got the squad. He's getting the most from the squad. He's getting He's getting more than the sum of the parts, and that's all we can hope for.
Yeah, it is good, isn't it, Dave, to be able to sort of go to a team like Forest who have had an incredible season and go and play them at their own game and win. You know, we have actually, our record there is incredible. So the last time we got beat was 95, 96. I mean, we've only played them 5 times since then, but we have won 4 and drawn 1. So we have got a good record down there. But that aside, I think to go there and, you know, as Rod said, you know, there's a lot riding on that game for them because he could have gone within 2 points of Arsenal. Nothing riding on it for us, and the team, like Rodger said, played with that sort of freedom and that lack of pressure. But it is good to be able to have the confidence and go away and do that. And for that 58% possession, we never looked uncomfortable at any point during that game. I think we were pretty much in control of it from the start. Forest had the odd flutter, but we were never in any danger and we looked really comfortable.
We did, and I think that emphasises even more that if you go and get a competent striker, and I know Beto's had his moments, and Rodger actually looked decent there, I think, as well. You go and get somebody who's half a bit better, then Everton can be a force in the Premier League, I think, because of the way we play. You're just missing that final part, and I think you see that we need to create more chances, but we get in the position to create them. I think, you know, it's like you get to 99%, and then that last 1% we haven't got. I know obviously many clubs would say that, wouldn't they, that they need a striker. Every club always says they need a striker. Regardless of, well, Arsenal are saying they need a striker, aren't they, given that they've got a load of them out injured, and they haven't got the best ones in the world anyway when they play in Havertz and Jesus. But if we were going to get somebody who, I don't know, somebody who's a bit of a jack of all trades, but not in a critical way of them, I think you then look at Everton as a different force, and the way in which we play will set up a number of chances. There's somebody who can go and do that. I think you see him on the pitch, he's back playing. You see Alcaraz, and you know, I've started to sort of to go one side or the other, whether David Moyes wants to keep him there. I'm not entirely sure that he's fully convinced by him, which I think many of us would say absolutely go and get him, given the price and what we've seen. He feels like a no-brainer to many of us. It doesn't feel like Moyes is quite there with him yet, and obviously he remains to impress in the last 6 games. But the way in which we're set up, the way in which we can drive, the way in which we can press forward, the way in which we have a midfield that are relentless, like Gana Gay there, that's the best this season's the best I've seen him for Everton, and I think since we first got him, he went away and came back. He's got older, he's got better. He's got older, he got quicker. He's got older, he's got stronger. It's that sort of Rolls Royce effect, isn't it, that many people start talking about when players get older and start playing better. You know, you look at, I think it reminds me a little bit of Gundogan, who's at Manchester City. Without the goal scoring, the way in which he can put into his game. He's not a goal scorer. He's barely a shot on target player, isn't he? Really, when you want to think about it too much. But he's relentless in what he does. He doesn't stop. He's fine. What he's added to his game, and I think I've been fascinated by him this season, not only with Moyes but with Dyche. He does drive forward. He's happy. He's happy to get involved. He's happy to move out of his safety line of maybe just in and around the centre circle, and he won't press forward even more. You see him on the edge of the 18 now and again. I mean, I scream at him, "Don't shoot," every single time he gets the ball there for those obvious reasons I've mentioned. But we're getting different things from different players as well. And I don't know if you guys saw it. I haven't got it to hand now, and I should have. That James Garner's come out and said about Everton could be the side that's obviously not verbatim, the sort of like the pick of the bunch that get sort of a little bit higher in the league. And I don't know, I didn't like what he said, and maybe you can find it on there. Les, I'm not sure he quoted it on Twitter what he said, but it was almost a plucky Everton type statement, which I don't like at all. I've never liked anybody coming out and saying that, from Phil Neville even to Seamus Coleman coming out and saying, "Oh, Everton we can do well. It's really good that we finished seventh." Phil Neville saying Everton finishing seventh are good for a club like Everton. It wasn't as brutal as that, but he did come out and say about Everton next season could be one of those that is in the top half or something like that. You're correct. You're trying to find it, Liz. I've got this feeling towards us now that Everton can go deeper here. And as much as Liverpool fans have kicked off when people are saying this Premier League shit in general, that the level of play in the Premier League is shit. If it's that way inclined that it is, that we all believe that it is, then there's no reason why Everton can't finish comfortably in the top half of the Premier League table going into next season. And games like that away at Forest, the kind of thing that excites you a lot more, because you feel like Everton have got control of games and are comfortable having control of them. I think under Sean Dyche, if Everton had 58% possession, they'd be absolutely shitting themselves.
Yeah. Well, like you said before, it's sort of like with Dyche, it felt like we were just waiting and hoping for something to happen. This feels a lot more purposeful, doesn't it? Just on James Garner, he says, they pretty much want to emulate Forest, be a surprise pick in the table next season. I don't think many people would expect us to finish top half of the table next season, but we know and definitely know we've got the players and we've got the ability and we've definitely got the team to finish in the top half. So they've gone on an inspiring run, and there's no reason why we wouldn't be able to do that.
It's wishy-washy. We know top half. Maybe I've been overly critical of him, but you sort of get what I'm sort of getting at.
I mean, I think an important thing here, Rodger, is we can't get ahead of ourselves, can we?
No,
I think probably aiming for top half should be the extent of our ambition next season.
Maybe. I mean, I just think we're living in a bubble for these last dozen or so games since Moyes has come in, because he's got us safe. The fans are happy. There's lots of lovely videos out about Bramley Moor, and the future looks bright. But let's be real. We don't have a good enough squad to be top half for 38 games. We don't. There are positions that we lack. Centre back cover. Tarkowski. Should be under pressure. We right back. We probably need an upgrade, and clearly at the top end of the pitch. But it's great, and as long as it lasts, it's absolutely fantastic, because it is building confidence and it's giving Moyes an idea as to styles of play that we can operate on. I read a decent article about Liverpool and how they've actually won the league without having the ball, and what Slot's changed is how they press. And the way we pressed and the way we were pressing until the final minute, the foot in from McNeil is absolutely superb.
Yeah.
The great Johan Cruyff says that players have the ball for 3% of the game. So, individual players, and therefore it's what you do for the other 97% that's really, really, really important. Now, you can all have coasting players who you give a free ride to because they'll turn up with a moment of magic in the penalty box and win you the game. But modern football, with the fitness and the demands on the players and the speed with which counter attacks can happen, fitness has to be there, and the pressing has to be absolutely relentless. And that's where someone like Jack Harrison, that we've been very critical of, is a really useful asset. It's just that he's very good without the ball, but when you give him the ball, he's a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, those 3 minutes are a hard watch when Jack Harrison's got the ball, aren't they?
Very much so. So yeah, I think we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves, but I think we should still be ambitious. If that's not a massive contradiction, which I know I'm used to. It's a real win away at Forest. It was a deserved win. It wasn't just a hanging on or a fluke goal in the last minute. It was very well deserved. And the style of football, the quality of the football is something that we should take a lot of positivity from. But it's very different doing it when you mid-table, no jeopardy, than when you're third and you need the points to secure. Look at Liverpool; they're virtually falling over the line this year. They're struggling to beat West Ham. They struggled to beat us, and we played very well.
West Ham are a very good side, apparently.
And now they've lost David Moyes. I mean, David Moyes was awful at West Ham. I mean, they're used to winning more than one European trophy. They were quite right to get rid of him. What a joke they are. Absolutely blowing bubbles wherever they go. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with that. It will be a test, obviously, when there is some jeopardy involved. Because, like we said, we're in a kind of weirdly privileged position at the end of the season, whereby we don't really have to worry about anything. I mean, no one was asked when Ipswich went 2-0 up, worthy. No one cared. In the recent seasons, we all would have been panicking there and praying for Chelsea to come back, but it genuinely didn't matter, and that probably does transmit to the team. I think looking forward though now. We've got McNeil back, and like you said, Rodger, that he had a lot to do there with that goal. Even closing down Murillo, because
absolutely
he was a good few yards off him, but he got the tackle in, and then to play that ball through was fantastic. So we've got a good ball playing player there who sets up a hell of a lot of good chances. We'd stand on Charlie Alcaraz. I think I've said before, I think he's done enough to get a move for that money, but he's another one, isn't he, who he uses the ball well, he carries it forward well. He just adds another bit of dynamism to the team, and I'd like to see him get more than 20 minutes at the end of a game.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see him playing next season, but I have a feeling that Moyes doesn't really fancy him. And I don't think he knows where he fits in. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, I don't see him as a Souček. I don't see him as a Paquetá. I don't see him as a Bowen. And I think with the various options that he's got, and Dye, and then a striker, where's Alcaraz going to fit in a midfield 3 or 4? Is he going to play 10? I don't think he sees him as a 10. Is he an 8? Well, where does an 8 fit in if you're going to have 2 wide players? With McNeil's going to be on one side, and hopefully someone with a bit more pace on the left. Difficult. I think we should get him. I think it's one of those, but it's the price, Dave, you were talking off air about the price of bangers and mash in St Andrews, but you paid top dollar and they were really, really nice. And just an average bangers and mash was, for 12 quid, Alcaraz 15 million. It's good value, but really, will he get us 10 goals a season? Will he create, an extra 2 or 3 chances? And it's difficult. I think the price is a good price, but you worry about why did he not fit in at Juve? Why has he not fitted in other places? I would still roll the dice with him, but the thing, you just have to leave it to Moyes because I trust him. I trust his judgment. That's the point. So if we don't take him, it's fine. If it was not Dyche saying we don't need Alcaraz, we'd be screaming, of course, because we don't trust Dyche, and we didn't trust Dyche, and thank goodness he's gone. But Moyes, I think, has a plan, and it's probably a cunning one. And if it involves Alcaraz, great. And if it doesn't, I'm sure he'll find someone else to fit into a style of play.
Yeah, I just feel it's one of them where he could go somewhere else and we'll regret it. But we'll never know unless, we'll just have to see what pans out in the summer. I want to pick up on the referee briefly. He had an interesting game. I genuinely think Everton could have had 2 penalties there. Dave, what do you reckon? I think the one on Alcaraz, I can't get my head around why that wasn't given. And I think it was Murillo as well who stuck his leg out for the other one. I think that was in the first half, maybe.
I think that was just outside the box, wasn't it? I think
was that just outside, but
I think so. That's the one you're talking about.
To not give the foul was a bit odd, I thought.
And obviously, it's a lower bar to give a foul outside the box as well, isn't it? I was surprised as Alcaraz not getting that one. I mean, he's a unit, that lad, isn't he? But he's a clumsy unit, and you've seen that's why McNeil was able to break forward when he won that ball at the end as well. He's that type of player they all love, isn't he? Because he's a big lad, and the way in which Liverpool chant about their centre back, Abue. What's his name? That is Abue. Konate, sorry, Abu Konate. they do the same thing with him, don't they? Everyone's got a big fella and they start loving it. And yeah, that to me should have happened. The Alcaraz one, I don't know. I guess we're back to, you need to basically an Everton player needs to have broken the leg in order to get a penalty decision, and that felt the very shame of that. I mean, I don't know. We're at that stage, aren't we, where Everton don't win penalties, and that could be part of our motto, couldn't it? But I mean, I know we won the one when and I put away at Brighton. Everyone was surprised as as us winning an away game back in the day. Anyway, and when's the last penny he scored a pen? Didn't we? Had Pen at Goodison and he scored. Who was that against? That was against. Did we beat at home?
That was the Arsenal.
No, that was the draw against Arsenal.
Yeah, of course, it was. Yeah, Arsenal. I was like, these penalty things. I've never seen these before.
And that one wasn't a penalty, remember? That was not a penalty.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, look, it's a lottery. But one thing I did want to hint at was the translucent offside trap is here now, isn't it? I don't know what
it is.
Of it. I was delighted by it. I thought it's brilliant. That's a great idea. But I'm just thinking it's come about, 7 or 8 years too late?
I can't
does that mean that, if should the players not... You probably guys are too... young to remember the old Ready Break adverts where you ate your Ready Break and you were walking down the street and you were radioactive. So perhaps if the players don't eat Ready Break, they won't show up on the offside thing. I don't know. Is that
you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if an Everton player got caught offside from a Ready Break glow.
Yeah. Do I did note this though, and it's obviously when these new this new technology comes along. You do start to fit into decisions that would have gone for your club, and I'm just thinking that how that would it have panned out in Everton's not favour, but the justified Liverpool not scoring that goal at Anfield, given what happened with Diaz being over offside. I mean, would that count with it? Because I'm just wondering whether they'd see that as something that they needed to look at. So I still think that
I don't think it would have done. I think
it needs to be generally when someone scores a goal and they're checking if he's offside or not.
Yeah, it's generally the two players running forward, isn't it? I think the big thing with the Diaz one was that he was facing away from the goal, so he wasn't facing the goal, so it wasn't played through to him to attack the goal,
and he never touched the
ball.
ball.
You could say he's walking back.
Yeah.
But he was the only player it was going to. But I don't think it would have counted in that regard. But it is weird, isn't it, that they're bringing this in with 6, 7 games to go. I mean,
experiment, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't understand it. I mean, I don't like the offside rule and its current format, where there's such finite margins, purely because there's no player on earth can work to those margins. I think this semi-automated's better, but you're still going to have the situation where a player can be offside by a kneecap, and if he's looking across the line and he's level apart from his kneecap, I just think that's too fine a margin for a player to even consider. And if a player can't consider it, well, then it just seems like a mad decision to me. But
your talent as a forward has just been. It's just obscure now, isn't it? I mean,
it's luck, isn't it? Really?
I mean, when you're taught as a young player, when you get talented lads coming through as a young player, and they're making that sort of curved run and stuff like that, and that's a real striking talent. That if you can move inside then out, and you score a goal from it, that move as a striker, I used to love that. When they make that run inside, and then they've already got a head start on the defender who's chasing back against him. And that was an art to me, watching strikers score goals or any form of position on a pitch scoring goals from that perspective, and that's gone because. If you're doing that, why would you as a manager these days, why would you as a coach of a young player start teaching them that when you rightly say there, Les, that the slightest toenail offside, it's not going to count for you. So therefore you'd be thinking, well, probably goes against the percentages of teaching them to do that because they're more than likely going to get called offside, or it's a high percentage of these are going to be called offside by VAR and the referee or whatever incompetence they have in terms of looking back on it. When you probably be teaching something else where it's you have to absolutely stay in front of the defender you're against. I don't know. I think that nullifies a lot of talent as a striker these days.
Yeah,
that part of the game's completely altered for the much worse it is anyway. But like with this, I don't even know what to call it. What did you say it was? What's the technical name?
I think it's called.
I was just thinking of like, putting a cape on or something, putting Harry Potter's cape on or something like that, so you can run through and get a chance on goal and score. But yeah, you're right. I think it's a small step in the right direction, I suppose.
Yeah, and just on Craig Pawson as well, I'm just looking at some stats. Everton very, very rare. You'll be surprised to hear. Very rarely win when he's manager. I think he's officiated since 13, 14, 30 odd games. We've lost 15, won 6, and drawn however many is left there. So it was against the odds as far as the referee is concerned as well. But just to finish on this, it's a really good result. It made the weekend a hell of a lot better than it could have been. And we can look at these City games, and given Chelsea's performance and results against Ipswich, I know we're getting into that territory now where the relegated clubs or almost relegated clubs are probably playing with less pressure because they're like, we're down, so let's just go for it. So we do have
1 point, Les. 1 point.
What's that?
1 point. That's all. That's all we need.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's done and dusted, and these players will know that at like Ipswich and Leicester and stuff, who both got decent 2-2 draws at the weekend. But Rodger, I think we can look forward now, can't we, after this? Because it's not another draw, which wouldn't have been a disaster by any means, but it's suddenly like we've not won for 3 months, but we have drawn a shitload of games, and it's not the most inspiring. I think with this now, not to get ahead of ourselves, we can look forward to City and Chelsea now with a little bit of confidence, I think.
Well, I don't want to fall into the trap we fell into about Arsenal ahead of their Champions League game. So I'd like to say I think Manchester City are an absolutely brilliant team. We haven't got a hope in hell. I could watch them all day long. They're brilliant on the ball. And, they can pass it around all day for me. It's fantastic the way they send the opposition to sleep. And I don't think we've got a cat in hell's chance. My alter ego thinks it's up and at them, and of course we can beat them, because to Dave's point on Gundogan, bringing him back was an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
Because I think he's been rubbish. He'll probably score now. So City are a very good team, and I expect them to beat us. I'm not saying any more than that, because it all went wrong until Madrid turn it around tomorrow night, in which case we'll have been proven correct.
Yeah. Does it not annoy you guys that we're at a stage now where there's so many dead rubbers? I mean, it's. I'm delighted about it for us, because when have we been at this stage? It's been years, isn't it, since we've got to this stage of the season? If you go and lose the last 6, obviously we'd be fuming with it, and we'd be talking about all sorts of different issues and players that we need to go and get that we wouldn't say about now, because we've had half decent run of form. But I hate stages of the season when you get to it like this, and obviously for us, I think it's Goodison that's sort of kicking us up the arse and keeping us going. I mean, maybe that's a disservice to how we have played under Moyes. I mean, he hasn't taken the foot off the accelerator, as the way in which we've gone about getting our results. But yeah, I mean, with City, with there being 5 places on the Champions League as well, I was talking to a friend about this. I mean, that's quite ridiculous, isn't it? 5 places.
It could be 6. Yeah. It could be 6. It could be 7. We could have 7 teams in the Champions League. It could
be 6 if Arsenal win it. Yeah, if Arsenal don't win it.
No, if Villa win it and don't finish in the top 5,
yeah,
and Spurs or United win the Europa League, and if the top 5 is Liverpool, Arsenal, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea, Newcastle, Villa win the Champions League, and Tottenham. I mean, Tottenham are not going to win the Europa League, but let's not jinx that. You could have 7 teams in the Champions League.
Champions League, the name of it.
We're only 10 points off 10th here, lads. Could get us
if that gets, well, I suppose if it gets further kicked down the road, 10th might well get you in the Europa Conference.
That's what I mean, yeah.
We want Arsenal to go and win the Champions League. We want Spurs to go and win the Europa League.
Is the age-old question here, right? I actually wouldn't want Everton to qualify for Europe now. And I've never been of this opinion, ever. I've always thought you got to get into Europe and just go for it. I just think we're not in a position to do that. I think if Forest qualify for Europe, which they obviously will, I think they'll struggle next season, because I don't think they'll... It seems you need to be in a very stable position with very good players and a relatively big squad to even contemplate Europe at the minute, and that is far from where Everton are. Where are you on that, Rog?
I disagree, because the Conference League is the only thing we have a remotest chance of getting in, and that's full of pub teams from the Faroes and all kinds of places. The Conference League should be a route to knockout football in the new year in Europe. I mean, West Ham won it under David Moyes, and David Moyes is a clueless manager, as we know. So, therefore why can't he do it with us?
Did he say this weekend as well? I keep on forgetting. I should have liked these on social when somebody was talking about, when he was criticised for leaving West Ham, or when he was sacked at West Ham, and he said maybe they thought he could go and get a better player, a better manager than me, or a different style of football or something like that. He said, but they had a manager that won a trophy sitting right here. I don't know whether it was one of those AI things, but I'm pretty certain it was real. I'm sure somebody will. Sorry,
West Ham Central on Twitter. I've said we made a mistake in sacking David Moyes.
Yeah. Well, there you
when
go.
They come along and said that.
I do like how fickle football is right now, but I think he said there in the press conference, they had a winning manager with me, and look where I am now, kind of thing.
In all seriousness,
they are fourth bottom, by the way, West Ham.
Yeah.
The table. That's very funny under Harry Potter.
I think, he's like, I'm not Harry Potter at all. But I just think on West Ham, I do have a bit of sympathy with them, because I think we've all been there ourselves with Moyes. Obviously, had he won a trophy with us, I don't think anyone would have been in the mind of getting rid of him at all. But we did reach that level a few times, that we were like, we're getting no further with this fella. And I do understand that frustration. But with hindsight, it's easy to look back and be like, yeah, that was a mistake, because we've never recovered since he left.
But hang on, just sorry, you'll get me on my hobby horse now, because we sacked Roberto Martinez after getting us to 2 semi-finals in 2016. What's all that about? We've never been anywhere. 2 semi-finals. We're a penalty kick away from knocking United out in the FA Cup final, and a dodgy decision at the Emirates when Sterling pulled the ball back from row F behind the goal. And we were 3-1 up on aggregate,
My issue with that is, like, bigger picture on that. He finished 11th twice with that squad.
11th? I for 11th. We haven't,
No, but with
give him a few quid, he would have been brilliant. Bobby Brown shoes.
He had like peak Jagielka. He had John Stones. He had peak Baines, peak Coleman. Tim Howard in goal was his massive Achilles heel. I don't want to go too deep into this. And basically, he had Lukaku carrying his shit defensive setup. But that's my opinion.
Gareth Barry,
McCarthy. Yeah, I mean that time it's it's almost like we're glorifying a side that finished 11th here, so we need to calm down with that sort of thing. But the point you make about Europe, I think you don't want to bite more than you can chew. I mean, as much we'll have many of our listeners here saying, "Oh, what are you talking about? You need to shoot for the stars and get as close as you possibly can to qualifying, and you need to go and win every game and all that sort of thing." But how many times have Everton been in a European, and particularly under David Moyes, been in a European competition? Well, Europa League, and then had a stinker of a season in the Premier League. That happened far too often for me. So I think we are. We're a good while away from being able to be a competent European challenging Premier League side, and one that could also cope with the, I don't know, whatever it is, ridiculous these days, 20 odd games that you need to go and win a European trophy. Everton aren't anywhere near that at the moment.
Yeah, I think if we were guaranteed the level of investment that we could use to buy players to cover that, then sound. But I think the position the club's in financially as well, because we still could be in for an uncertain summer here, which leads me on to our next point. Just want to finish on this. Alan Moyes yesterday posted something about agent fees from 2nd of Feb 24 to the 3rd of Feb 25, so year on year. Agent fees, some absolutely eye-watering amounts here. So the Premier League spent a total of £409,137,387 on agent fees alone. Now, I know there are some mitigating circumstances in the fact that a lot of players come from abroad, not just Europe, but the Americas and elsewhere. So you probably do need specialists in place to get these deals over the line and do all the paperwork and everything. But, there are some real eye-watering amounts here. Man City paid £52 million in agent fees. Chelsea paid £60 million. Christ knows where they're getting their money from, by the way. No sponsor, no Champions League. It baffles me. I know they just keep selling themselves assets, but come on. Let's have a look at Big Red. Big Red only paid £20 million, which is relatively paltry sum compared to the teams around them. And the Toffees were £9 million. So, you can see the constraints that Everton are working under there because we're not paying these massive fees. Now, I don't know if that's because we're not signing players on big contracts or we're not paying much for these players. But does this feel like it's getting out of control, Dave? I don't want to be too hyperbolic about this, but that seems like a hell of a lot of money to me.
Well, and any of our listeners in year 9, before you're picking your options in year 9, try and get into being agents in football.
Yeah.
Really, isn't it? I mean, it's blown out. Well, it's been blown out of control for quite some time, hasn't it? Really, and it shows the level of. I don't think it should be a legalized format. Really, we're talking about PSR and we're talking about various financial issues in football. And this is quite obviously gone by the wayside because everybody else is talking about what you make revenue wise, what you've done for your last 3 years in your accounts and stuff like that. The agent fees is sort of we'll brush that under the carpet, or it's included in all of this, but we're not putting a spotlight onto it because it's not particularly as important as everything else that we fucked up. But yeah, I mean it's a massive problem. And it just seems to be getting worse and worse. And, if you're, and look, obviously on the other side of it, if you're an agent, why wouldn't you try and exploit what goes on in football? But it shouldn't be there to be allowed to do so, Les. And I'm not too sure how you would nullify the impact that it has on clubs having to spend there, because we're talking there, for instance, about, I don't know, maybe it's the same case with them, but if you're talking about Charlie Alcaraz, who Everton hopefully go and sign, the agent there, Everton aren't just only paying 16 million. Everton just aren't only paying X amount of money for a player. Yeah. That's just to get the player. That doesn't include the contract. And Rodger will know much more of this than me. That won't include the contract. That won't include what they're paying towards an agent as well. And there'll be very other bells and whistles in and around it to get a player at your football club. All we see is what you're going to see on Football Manager when you go and sign a player for X amount of million. You think that's it. They've signed on the line and that's it. What clubs owe out, as you've just seen there, substantial amount of what you need to pay for a player, and sadly, as what you just said there about Liverpool, that's far better than the other side you mentioned there, cities, and don't know what the hell goes on at Chelsea and who they're backhanding to pay people off at Chelsea. That's unbelievable what goes on there with players and agents and whatnot. But yeah, it's crap, isn't it? It's another element for the game that. Have you got a good agent? It's almost like we're signing agents rather than players, isn't it? You want to get an agent who can do a decent job for you. Yeah. I mean, going back to what we were talking about with Mashiri and Karabchian and the way in which he started operating at the football club, then you're ending up in PSR nonsense, aren't you? So it's a massive issue that needs to be sorted, certainly on our side of things, and the thing about sorting it out, it's counterproductive because you're allowed to do what you want.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully that Jarabchin nonsense and people like that is behind us. Rodger, just on those figures. So it was 272 million in 21-22, 220 million in 22-23, and now we're up to what, 420 million? Is it? So I've lost it now. 409 million. So they are quite considerable increments, aren't they?
They are, and people will say it's money going out of the game and it should go to grassroots football, and they'll have a view of agents being spivs and just talking the market up. But the point is, this is the world we live in, so we can't play holier than thou. We have to sort of abide by the rules. And agents have always been around. There were dodgy agents around in the 60s and 70s. When it was a totally unregulated market. It's just that the numbers were less. So I don't get that uptight about it because I think it's a product. The most important thing is that you find good players, and good players who will fit into your squad and who will improve you as an overall unit. And if you have to pay an agent fee to get, I don't know how much Mo Salah's agent got, for example. I don't know how much Kevin De Bruyne's agent got, for example. And some of these players that Brighton have signed and then turn a £50 million profit on. If you're still finding good players, then that's okay. But if you're paying stupid agent fees to bring Casemiro in or Christian Eriksen in, then frankly you're an idiot. So there's a market and there's a way of there's a process that you have to go through. If you want to go and play golf at St Andrews, you have to pay 22 quid for sausage and mash. 13 quid for a pint of Coke or whatever. So if you want to sign a good player, inevitably he'll have a decent agent. And signing him for 16 million might involve 2 million going to his agent. It's just
well, how,
the way
Rodger,
it is.
the point I'd like to ask you specifically on this is, how does that sort of go hand in hand with what you're getting from an academy and from a scouting system? So say, for instance, we've got a decent scout set up there and we go, do you know what, I really like that player. When they report back to whoever it is with the purse in their hands and says, look, we should go there. Not many people have looked at him. I've looked at him. He's going to be top class. He's going to develop into a really top class player. The club's approach, that lad's going to have an agent. A young player's going to have an agent. Going about that then becomes, this is where I feel it's quite sickening to me, because that becomes an aspect of even getting a young player to your football club, doesn't it?
Well, it does. But I think part of the agent's role is to protect the young player as well. And I think increasingly parents are getting involved in becoming agents for their young players, and they're not necessarily the best, are they? You know, Messi's agent was his dad and has been his dad forever. And I think sometimes the parents are worse because they're even more money grabbing, you know. Agents can work in your favor, because if, you know, we have a prestigious talent, let's say Rooney again, you know, an agent can make sure we as the selling club get a better price for, you know, this prodigious talent. I mean, who was the agent for Ryan Brewster who convinced Sheffield United to spend 23 million? Or Jordan Ibe, or any of these. So do agents inflate prices? Yes, they do, because it's just like Trump and his tariffs. You know, somebody's got to pay the fee. And if we're sellers, we're going to benefit. And if we're buyers, we've just got to be more astute, I suppose.
Yeah, just want to finish on one thing about this. If you look at the Championship, Leeds United, massive outlier in their agent fees. They paid £18 million, which is more akin to a Premier League budget. It's probably about 10 other clubs combined in the Championship. The worry for me is the CEO who signed that off is Angus Kinnear, who's coming to the Toffees next season. Is that a little bit of a red flag for anyone?
Well, maybe it's just coincidence, and maybe, you know, Leeds have budgeted to come out of the Championship. You know, the last two seasons haven't quite made it. You know, Angus isn't joining us until he's seen Leeds over the line, is he? Because, you know, and it's slightly disappointing that they seem to, you know, they were looking like blowing it a couple of weeks ago, and now Sheffield United are looking like blowing it.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, Mr. Kinnear, I think, has some sort of accounting background to him.
The last thing we need is another accountant.
We don't. Well, not an accountant that can't add up. No, and all the batteries have gone in his machine. Who knows? I do find that appointment, you know, positive in that he's clearly got some good experience from his time at West Ham and Arsenal. But rather like Amorim, you know, not wanting to go to United, but being told, well, you either come now or you're not coming at all.
Yeah.
You know, Leeds were top of the Championship. Really, is Leeds promotion dependent upon Angus Kinnear staying in his office and signing expenses? Bollocks, you know. He should have come straight away, in my view, but what do I know? I know nothing. I've got one last thing for you when we've come to one last thing, but I'll wait for Dave's response on that.
I was just going to say, it feels like, you know, you've got the frying pan into the fire, haven't you, really, with what he's going to be expecting, or maybe what we're going to expect of him, because he's obviously going to come in with some brand new tools to go around with Everton and how we're going to operate ourselves. You know, I would imagine that when he comes in there, it's going to be a whole new, different ball game for him in terms of the restrictions Everton are going to have to be able to go and do what he wants to do financially with the club. And I don't know. I mean, I think Leeds have been a basket case for, well, since they began, really, haven't they? Certainly, the Premier League era in finances, certainly. You know, when you think back to
Ridsdale and Goldfish,
all the gang that sell for £1 and all that stuff. You know, that's always been Leeds. So I suppose if you're writing a book of his career, if he was doing a diary himself, then this fits in perfectly, doesn't it? The next stage is that he's coming to Everton in regards to financial problems. But yeah, I mean, I think that Championship level there, Leeds Leeds are always at the high end of they're a Premier League club, and I'd class them as a Premier League club. I class them.
Oh, me too. Yeah,
absolutely. Leeds are a Premier League side. But having said that, if you need to pay to that level to get out of the Championship, then if you don't, that's a high price to pay, isn't it? Because if they don't get up, that's when you start thinking, oh shit, what have we done here? Can we pay that again? Are we still able to keep all this at a certain level in order to go again next season and get back in the Premier League? So it's high end, isn't it? And maybe that's good for us, that somebody who can operate and has been effective in getting Leeds into the Premier League. Maybe that works when you come to a Premier League club and you're able to get them bumping up the top of the higher end of the Premier League.
I'm just worried he doesn't know where the decimal point goes, but we'll see. Rodger, I'll leave the final word to you.
Well, actually, I've got two final words, given that we talked about Kinnear there. So this last game against Southampton, that is going to be whenever it's going to be, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, whenever, Wednesday night, when no one can get time off work. Will he be there? Will Kinnear be there? And will the Freakins be there? Who's going to be there? Who's going to be front row of the director's box for Southampton at home?
Is there still 4 empty seats there?
What for? Possibly, yeah. Maybe little Miss Dynamite's seat is still there. I don't know. And so that was or maybe it's blown up, her seat. I don't know. And then my final question. You don't have to answer it, but what do we think about Doucouré saying "sign me up"? What?
Yeah. I loved it. I thought it was that funny.
But I thought it was hilarious. But does it? What does it say about the club? I mean, he doesn't know, or has he been told? He's not been told. Does he genuinely not know that he's going to be let go? Or it seemed like a real comedy moment that he's signing his contract. I half expected someone to come off from the dugout with a piece of paper. Sign here. That was very good. Yes.
Well, he spoke about it a bit on Match of the Day. I don't know if you've seen his interview on Match of the Day, and he was saying, I don't know, being quite coy about it. I just remember back, I don't know if you guys remember it, when JJ Okocha was at Bolton, and he did exactly the same sort of thing there, because the club hadn't signed, and it was when he played on till he was about 65, didn't he? And he came to the Premier League when he was in the latter part of his career, but he was a great player to watch and a bit of a piss taker, wasn't he, when he got the ball and stuff. And he did exactly the same thing, as in I want to sign a new contract. So, I mean, you can take it as you like, the way in which he celebrated it. I thought it was quite funny, because, I mean, quite clearly that would indicate to me that the club have said, see you later, mate. Yeah. But then when he's doing that sort of thing, he's thinking, well, I'm out of contract. Think again, can we talk again? So maybe we're reading too much into that. But yeah, just on the face of it, I thought it was quite funny.
Yeah, nice. I think what it says is he wants to stay, and if players want to stay, that's not a bad thing, is it? Because it shows we're in a relatively...
Well, if they're not crap and touch a ball, then yeah, absolutely. But
I want to stay. I want to stay. Can you sign me up, please? I want to stay.
Yeah, just 120 grand a week will do.
Yeah, the posh side of Oliver Twist, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. I'll have Dave Downey as my agent as well.
3 bangers of mash per year.
Not if you want to pay 20 quid to hear some bangers of mash in Scotland. Certainly not me.
Right, that'll do us for this week's Toffee Tuesday. Enjoyed that, gents. Very good, very illuminating, very enlightening. Let us know what you think on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. That has been it for this week's Toffee Tuesday, formerly Blue Monday. Who knows what it'll be next week? We will be back with all the usual stuff leading up to Man City at home at the weekend. Thanks, Rog. Thanks, Dave. Thanks to everyone for listening. Up to Toffees.